Hi, welcome back to Echoes and Edges, the Broken and Beautiful podcast. The Broken and Beautiful is a collective of healers on the hunt for beauty, meaning, and transformation. I'm Patria, your host for Echoes and Edges, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, we get to have a conversation with Monica Aksamit, our transformational coach at The Broken and Beautiful, for part 2 of our series on the cost of connecting to yourself. And today we're focusing on building new relationships and choosing well-being. So tell us a little bit about yourself. And what would you like the listeners to know besides that you're a transformational coach at The Broken and Beautiful?
Well, thank you for asking. I have had a lifelong interest in what makes people tick, what motivates people, what drives people, what inspires people. And originally in 2002, I signed up for my first class in walking with people through the desires of their heart, things that they wanted to shift in their lives. And I haven't looked back. I have just always just been drawn to that. Actually, I don't have a tendency to read a lot of books for outside of self-help and growth books. The fun, my fun playground is that arena. It's helping just discover more, the deeper essence of who we are as individuals and how we navigate this life that we're invited to live in.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And you do come with that wealth of knowledge is what I would call it. And I mean, that's 23 years, if I'm doing my math right, that you've intentionally been diving into this world of transformation and recovering more of ourselves in this thing called life. So what a gift to hear from you. And of course, I know you and know it's a gift anyway, but even just to hear that and be reminded myself of the wealth of knowledge that you bring and all of the years that you've intentionally been doing. Like, it's not to say before 2002, you weren't working on transformation. That's when it officially began in some ways. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm excited for this conversation. So last week, Carla and I talked about the cost of connecting to ourselves, and we really did focus in some on this liminal space a little bit more than we anticipated, perhaps. But I still think it's a really good jumping off place for here, which is when we discover that we have a self and we're not okay with all the things that we've built our life around or adjusted to or adapted to. We tend to let go of roles and expectations and relationships that don't fit as well. And so what have you found that in-between space feels like before something else new takes shape? So that maybe liminal space or the where you've left one place but you haven't gotten to the other.
There are a variety of ways that I experience that. And most definitely it feels a bit like limbo. You know where you don't want to be anymore, and you're waiting for the train to get you to that place where you know you want to go, but you're just suspended in the in-between. And in that time, what can surface is tension, because you're holding both uncertainty, and which can drain energy, and you're also holding hope, and that can invite energy. And so you've got these two kind of polarizing experiences that you're holding simultaneously. And it can often cause opportunity for doubt. Like, how did I do the right thing? This is not familiar. Familiar is comfortable, whether it is helpful for us or not. Familiar is comfortable. And, if somebody came up to me and said, hey, would you like to be uncomfortable? I would choose no, definitely not on my agenda today. However, when I have intentionally chosen that I don't want to be here or this anymore, and I need to be here, that is intentionally choosing to sign up for discomfort. And therefore, it's this space in between is just a constant reminder of this is growth, this is movement, it's growing pains. When I was physically growing, I experienced pain and discomfort as my body grew. And the same is true when I'm growing emotionally, spiritually, socially. There is going to be some discomfort as I'm expanding that part of my being. And so the challenge is to be comfortable in my uncomfortableness.
Yeah. I'm thinking a lot about, as you're talking and really putting pragmatic language, like, you've clearly lived through this, seen it in others, and me too. Like, this is a space that we feel viscerally, and I can feel that while you're talking. How do we know when the discomfort that we're in needs help? Like, maybe it's too much for me to carry by myself. When is it time to reach out and say, I need some support? Like, I need some tapping, Monica. I need some help with my anxiety, or just, can you orient me? Can you spot me for a minute? I'm feeling so disoriented. Am I on the right path? How do we gauge that? What are your thoughts about that?
To set myself up for success or something sustainable, I can't do it by myself. I can't, with my mind, that I can't shift my own mind because I only have the sight the vision that I come into a situation with. So it's really imperative to invite additional eyes with, especially if there's a significant desire for change, if there's going to be a lot that's changing. I may choose that this group that I am in, it doesn't fit anymore, and I may choose not to be a part of that group. There may not be a lot of consequence to that one way or another. And I can navigate through that change just by, thinking on that on my own. Like, no, it feels better. I do feel better that I don't have this. And then there are changes that we may bump up against, relationships that are something that we're more invested in, or we have more connection with. It may be work relationships, it may be family relationships, it may be friend relationships, it may be partners. And generally speaking, we are more invested in those. And if something is not fitting quite right in those categories, then it really is helpful to have someone come alongside so they can be looking for the blind spots that we can't see because we are emotionally invested in those a little bit differently. And our perspective is maybe distorted just a little bit.
Yeah, that's so well said. And I'm thinking too of just how receiving input and feedback is discomfort in itself sometimes, just at least for me as a person who doesn't love criticism, or feels feel sensitive. I have a sensitive, experience of if I've done something wrong or if I feel like I've done something wrong. So that space between, that space of limbo where you're suspended in the in-between, and I'm just reading back, I wrote down what you said, suspended in the in-between, holding both uncertainty and hope. It's like letting go of the ways that we've survived and feel familiar and feel good, and reaching towards something that's scary and can feel like, am I doing it right? And so inviting eyes in to help us and coach us and be with us that are for us feels scary and freeing. Like it's a little bit exhilarating for me when I think about that because of safety. Like if there's trust, I trust somebody's for me, then I can relax into, even if it's hard, I can relax into the way that they're helping me, they're coaching me in that situation. So that's kind of coming to my mind while you're talking. Does that stir any other thoughts for you?
Well, it does. A word picture that comes to mind is for anybody who's parasailed or watched somebody parasail. There's this moment, like you choose to do that. That just doesn't happen accidentally. You choose that, and you are tethered to a boat, and like there's some excitement because you're wanting to look forward and have a different perspective than you've had before. You're down low. You can feel the waves of the water. You can hear it. You can smell it. You can hear the birds. You can hear the boat motor. And then all of a sudden it takes off, and then there's a little tug. And it's like, oh, what's happening now? But you're kind of like, well, this is looking like kind of like this could be fun. And then you start to feel the tension, and it's taking you up from a higher perspective and higher perspective. And all of a sudden you can't quite hear the noise from the boat, or hear maybe people on the beach. Like those noises are quieting. And then you get up to the point where the tension on the tether that's holding you has straightened out, and you are up above the level of the noise. You can, there's that silence. That's what peace sounds like. It's also, you have a perspective that you didn't have before. So that tethering is someone that can help bring you to a higher perspective. And also when it gets, when the silence gets kind of loud, because sometimes it does when we have this open spaciousness, that's when it's an opportunity for all the doubt and all the other things to come at us. But, we've now got this new perspective, this broader horizon to look at, and having somebody help us see that from a way that is not criticizing, but encouraging me. It's like, oh, well, if you want to, go glide to the right, you might need to do this, or glide to the left. It just helps us to see things differently, to be held by someone that offers safety, and bring some silence when we've maybe been a little too close to the noise for so long.
We're talking about the relationship with someone who's on your side and kind of helping you into this new place. So what does it look like to build new relationships, or to maybe even repair existing ones, or to edit existing relationships from a place of alignment with ourselves, from a place of peace? I liked the word peace that you said there. Like when you're tethered, you get that experience of perspective and peace, instead of performing or, adapting or leaving, dismissing ourselves, or, self-contempt, I think is a self-harm, but self-dismissal is a less discussed form of self-harm. So I want to pull that in there too, instead of the word performance. Maybe we're not all like stage people, but we might just forget our own agenda really easily.
When I think of alignment, it's defined as a position of agreement or an alliance. So, like when you are aligning yourself, you are in agreement with your beliefs, your values, your thoughts, your actions. That is something that's generated internally. Like when you align with, those are your thoughts, your beliefs, your values. So it's an internal action. Performance or abandoning one's self, or just leaving, that is something that I think of, well, when considering the word performance, that's like to put on an act or staging or presenting a play or presenting a concert. Those are all things that are forms of entertainment. Like we're putting something on. And what that does is it sets our identity aside. If we're putting something on, we're putting on an identity that may not be our own. And coming from that place, which is not necessarily aligned in the context of abandonment, self, that's where we don't have that perspective. We've lost sight of our alignment, gotten distracted, perhaps. And it can happen so subtly, like we don't necessarily realize we're doing that. It can happen because that's been a default behavior. That's what we've done to get a sense of love and care and belonging. We will leave this self that we're moving toward, like the aligned self, to go back to that comfortable place of familiar, because we aren't quite there yet. We don't have enough lived experience in this place of alignment that muscle is kind of weak. If we're going to look in terms of going to a gym to work out, we go in with a particular desire to come out a particular way after a period of time. And what that requires of us is to really work on some muscles that maybe have been atrophied, have not been used a lot. And that would be true of alignment. When we have identified what we are wanting to align with, those are brand new baby thoughts, experiences, actions that are going to be required of us. And we may feel fully that we deserve those, but our confidence around those comes forward as we practice them more. And then that muscle gets strong enough to be able to carry that out and not dip back into that default that our body knows is so familiar. So as far as what that looks like, what would be important for the alignment piece of it is maybe having some puzzle pieces in place, like knowing that if I've identified what I want to align with, what is that going to require of me to ensure that I either am solid in what I want to align with, I'm open to the possibility of adapting it based on the information I get. Like, well, I can always change my mind if I feel that truly believes or fits with my belief system. Or like, do I have the energy and clarity right now? Like, do I need someone to come alongside me, as we referred to in the first question, is what pieces need to be in place so I can have the assurance that I am aligning. Kind of like when our spine gets out of alignment, we don't feel well, and it might require some chiropractic adjustment to get us back in alignment. That requires someone else to help us get our body engaged in that way. When I'm aligned, I have a tendency to feel like I can trust myself to be my own advocate. And if I'm not feeling like I can trust myself, well, then that's my cue. I need another set of eyes on here. And I can trust myself enough to bring someone else to the table and say, this is what I'm seeing, thinking, feeling. Like, I was trusting myself up until this point, but now I'm not. So what can you see that I can't? when I'm in alignment, I find maintaining my personal integrity is invigorating. I feel like, yes, this is me. This is me. And when I have maybe abandoned myself or am in a performance mode, I lose, have a sense of loss of energy because it's like I gotta muster it up. I gotta muster this thing up because I'm not generating this from a place of, a core place within my body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah, that exhaustion, or in the Enneagram language, we talk about, and I think this is just good language in general. We have kind of three centers of intelligence, or ways that our neurological system maybe leads. There's the brain, there's the heart or emotions, the center of emotions, and the gut, the body. The body is also an intelligence. And I'm such a visual person that I think of alignment too as if I think of those three places as a slide, like a slide in or out. And if they're not lined up like in me, then something's off, something's out of alignment. It's slid out of the alignment. And then it helps me to kind of gauge, is it emotional? Is it in my mind? Is it my thinking? Like, am I holding a old belief that still feels true here? Is it a belief that needs to be reworked? Like self-doubt, we talked about a fair amount coming up here in these liminal spaces of change. Like, who do you think you are? I hear that in my own self and from other people so often when we're on growth edges or when we're changing something. And it can, if my mind, if I'm out of alignment, it could be that I need to change that, or I just might need to work on the tone. Like, if I can ask that without contempt, who do I think I am? Like that's a great question if I can ask it without contempt. So it helps me to kind of categorize what is it that's out of alignment too. And then sometimes to get input there even is helpful.
Yeah, some of our best thinking got us into some of our most difficult situations. So that is, that place of vulnerability. It's like knowing when you need help and asking. Because some of my best thinking got me into some of my worst, most difficult growth opportunities.
Let's just do a little bit more, see if we need to flesh this out anymore, because I skipped over one of the questions that we kind of had, which was, as someone reconnects with themselves, how does the way they show up in relationships begin to change? Is there anything else that feels important to really flesh out right there before we moved on to the other question? Because I think we've covered some of that, but not exactly, not directly.
I think it's really helpful to realize that as we reconnect with ourselves, we may show up in like the opposite of how we've shown up in anything ever before. Like we may feel someone that might have been reserved and not terribly verbal might show up as like being very opinionated and having some real thoughts and just very decisive where maybe they've not been decisive before. So that can be surprising. That can disorient some of the people you're in relation with. It's like, what is happening with you? So I'm finding me and I like it, and so to know that there is going to be some emotions that feel new and different and foreign or stronger or softer. All of that is true and it's important. It's that piece of us that is giving us the information. Like we may show up more playful and joyful because we are moving toward our more truer self. So colors may be brighter. Our sense of, hearing, like music, sounds, taste, smells, everything's amplified. And that's, exciting. And then 15 minutes later, we may find ourselves where somebody asks us a question. It's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I don't really like blue. I thought I did. It was the best color ever 15 minutes ago. You know, Permission to feel all the feels, because oftentimes in relationships we have tamped down some emotions to go along to get along. As we are accepting more of ourselves in a new way in the world, we're not willing to abandon ourselves from that. But we may be met with some resistance, because when we change, we invite those we're surrounded by to either change with us, or they may choose not to change. But it's going to cause somebody to have to be different in the world. If we're being different in the world, the people in our world will get the opportunity to be different in the world. And some people aren't open to that or struggle with that. And some people are like, I like what I'm seeing in you. This is good. And so ultimately, what I want to make sure to touch base on is to give that feedback that it does create a sense of some disorientation, like you feel like Jekyll and Hyde, like, oh, this highs and lows, pendulum swings. And that is 100% typical, and not something to think that this doesn't happen to anybody else. It does. And so you're on the right track if you're feeling feelings, because if you were doing the same thing, you wouldn't be feeling the new thing, and you wouldn't be moving forward. It helps us to think of whatever it is that feels opposite and contrary is good, and whatever feels familiar, not so helpful.
In terms of building these new ways or actual new relationships, maybe it's editing a current one, maybe it's building a new one, maybe it's leaving. Choosing well-being, what do we mean by that?
One, the visual that I get is like this is something that's deep and rich. And it's a place where all the things that are nourishing, like life-giving, goes in the well. Like there's this water that nourishes our body and that cleanses us. And so when I think of well-being, it's like, how can I be in that space of nourished and cleansed, and just live in that space? It is a sense of, again, I go back to the word, there's a peacefulness, even in spite of the fact that there is disruption or change that's happening that may not feel comfortable. Like well-being is the choice that I know this is what brings me life, as opposed to keeping me constricted and small. And so whatever it is that may cause my body to rise, like when I think of it, it's like, oh, and maybe there's a little sensation, some tingliness that's like, oh, that's what hope feels like in my body. So when I think of well-being, it's like, what is my body telling me that it wants for well-being? Well-being to me is when my body responds in a favorable way. And that may be where there's like something softens that was constricted or hard before. I may feel a sensation of some tingling, or just there's some lightness instead of weight. The messages, the clues that our body gives us, because our body doesn't lie, it's a truth teller. Our head may tell our body, no, we don't have time for that. If we don't do this thing, we won't get along with these people. Our head is going to convince our body otherwise, and our body's saying, you know what, this isn't in my best interest. This is not what brings me well-being. Can we listen? Can we connect that distance between our head and what our body's trying to tell us, and be open to hearing what our body is trying to tell us? What does well-being for us look like? It most likely it won't 100% align with someone else because that's their well-being. Our well-being is uniquely ours. And it's up to us to consider what that looks like, what it takes to get that to happen, to engineer that, to put the pieces in place to support ourselves in doing that, and know that we are deserving of that, because that which we can create well-being within ourselves, we can create well-being within those that we are connected to.
The cost of connecting to ourselves, it sounds like, in a sense, it sounds like it's negative because of the way it's stated, the cost of connecting to yourself. But really, it's an investment. That's the word that I was thinking as you were talking, that these adjustments and discomforts and sacrifices on one hand, are investments into a healthier way of being, into a softer, gentler, more peaceful way of being, and maybe just less hypervigilant, less braced, less fearful, but maybe more solid, more stable, more confident, more hopeful, more creative. There's a lot of things that can come with that investment, I would think. And that feels like well-being, the depths of the well, and being instead of doing. As people build new connections and choose well-being, what helps to sustain that over time without slipping back into self-abandonment?
For, how I experience it is, one, a trusted, safe community. Again, it's back to outside of that community, some of my best thinking got me into my worst issues, the things that were the hardest for me. And if I can plant myself firmly in a trusted, safe community, that there are others that can see, reflect back to me, and partner with me. Like, when I say the word trusted, it's people that have demonstrated to me that they are a little farther down the path, because I can find somebody else that might be on the same, on the path about where I'm at, and just because they can empathize with where I'm at and they have similar experiences, they may not have the eyes to see or to reflect back. This is still, you're still at this space. And to have somebody that is safe and a little farther down the road that can reflect back and see from a vantage point or from a perspective, that's the community I want to plug myself into. And those are people that have been able to be consistent in their demonstration of that. So I'm not just counting on somebody who's kind of the same place I am, but they haven't consistently demonstrated. There's an opportunity to miss some of the support I may need.
Life is long, right? And mundane mostly. So talk to us a little bit about the anxiety that arises in the silence, the longness, the newness, the new, the changes.
The anxiety that can come up as changes, I look at anxiety a little bit differently than maybe some. It is an indicator. I think of it in the terms of anxiety is just, it's like when you're driving a car that has the check engine light that pops on. That is there to get our attention. It's just telling us we need to pay attention to something. Something's not right. You need to get to a mechanic or somebody with one of those little gizmos that can tell you what that thing means. And that's how I perceive anxiety. It's not a problem to be solved. It's something that is trying to get our attention. It's our body saying something feels off. Let's explore that before or it derails or requires a much more expensive repair. Uh, Anxiety is just, it's a friend. It has our best interest at heart. It's going, hello, don't push me down. I've got something to tell you. And the self-abandonment comes in from saying, oh, no, you don't. I don't have time to listen to you. Anxiety is like, well, okay, but, it hasn't gone away. We haven't removed or addressed this check engine light. So I'm going to have to come back and get your attention, and I might have to be a little more insistent. And so it's really a really true friend for us that wants to partner with us in helping us to see the things that we might be missing.
Wow. I mean, that is such a different perspective, isn't it, Monica, than most people. We think of anxiety as something to fix or get rid of. And it's not that we don't maybe have something to fix. I think we're all open to fixing, but I hear you saying it's faithful. Anxiety it's a faithful friend. Those are the words I might put to it. You didn't say that, but it's like it's here on purpose. It's not here willy-nilly, random, just trying to throw you off or stop you from living fully. It's here to tell you something. And I just want to add, this is a little an aside, but as you were kind of fleshing that picture out, I was thinking about the whole of anxiety in our world today. Like, we are all living with these high levels of anxiety. And if we think of it as it's here to help us and tell us something is off, I was thinking, yes, that's wouldn't we all agree that then if that's the case, then it is actually just giving us an indicator that something is wrong. And we are actually feeling the effects of something being wrong. And we can't solve all of those things, but we can slow down and we can connect to ourselves and choose our own well-being, even in the midst of that. So it's a little bit of an aside, but I felt like that was such an important reframe that you gave right there. I really wanted to hover over it. Yeah.
It is, because I think that's been stigmatized. Somebody, to even say, I have anxiety. Well, good for you. That's awesome. It's like what it comes as like they're bringing it forward as something that's detrimental, and it's not. It's something that can be addressed. Our ability to cope with it and bring into light what's really driving the anxiety is what is the opportunity there. And sometimes we're naming something wrong. Sometimes we're naming as anxiety, maybe we're fearful of something and we're calling it anxiety. And when you flesh out, is it really anxiety or what's underneath that? Is it fear? Is it anger? Like, what is it really, so that we can identify what to look at, what the source of that is. And some of it, when I think of the global community that we're in, there's a lot of things that are coming up, and some of them are being put under the umbrella of anxiety. And yes, that's absolute truth. And that but that doesn't mean we're all experiencing fear, or we're all experiencing anger, or we're all experiencing. There are different drivers. There again is anxiety is the check engine light, and there are several things that cause that check engine light to come on.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, and I would say yes, and this is an invitation to really owning our own body, our own car in this metaphor, right? That like we each have our own control over our own body in some way, no matter our circumstances. There is some way that power arises even in powerlessness. And I think so, as you're talking, that just that coming back, the cost to connecting to ourselves might be noticing more of our reality. It might be recognizing more of something I maybe can change. Maybe it's something I can't change, but I can get care, or I can just own the reality. Sometimes that can calm anxiety as well, or it can adjust it. Yeah.
Sometimes I know that for me, it's been a part of my history to where I feel ownership of a lot of things that were not mine to own, and that generates a lot of anxiety. So, to your point, there are things that we can do things about, and there are things that are beyond our ability to do something about. But it's like putting ownership where it belongs, you know, putting all the things back in place, and knowing that this is mine. This is what I get to care for and manage, and what do I need in this moment? What's an unmet need here? It's so much simpler to have just my own car than the bus, the metro, the sub system, like all the ways to transport myself to anxiety.
Yes.
Ah, no good.
Yes.
No good.
Yeah. And just simplicity, the simplicity of myself, which not saying I'm not complex, but I'm complex enough for myself, like I'm all I can handle. Well, as we wrap up this conversation, what's stirring? What other images are coming? What else would you not want to leave without saying?
I have some word pictures around when we were talking about community. And the metaphor that comes to mind is bumper bowling. Like, community is like at the end, there's the 10 pins, and that's the big reward, right? When we knock those pins down. And the job of community is to keep us in our own lane. And so for every mile of our journey to change, there are 2 miles of ditch, because there's a ditch on each side. So our community, if we consider them bumpers that keep us in our own lane, they'll keep us out of the ditch. And the reward is that we will actually score something at the end of our journey. Like, we'll get some bonus points or whatever it is that is, inspiring us. And so community is the bumpers in our lane. They're guardrails that keep us from going over the edge. And they're meant for our safety and our well-being. And they come alongside us. So that's the word pictures for me, that what community looks like, and even as I think about it, what it feels like if I'm bumper bowling and I'm watching that ball go down at 1 mile an hour, and it's like, it's going to get there. It may not go the speed I want it to, and I may not get all 10 pins at once, but it takes whatever time it needs to take, and as to sustain it when those bumper guards are up. Like, the anticipation, I can feel it in my body. And when the pins go down, there's like, eureka! So there's some joy that comes along with that when we sit on the path.
Mm-hmm. So good. Well, I think that's such a great segue to the ending of talking about community. Well-being has so much to do with belonging. And you've mentioned belonging a couple times today, I think. How do you offer community, and how can people connect with you, Monica? And then I'll share a little bit about the Broken and Beautiful generally and connecting. But I know community is a big deal, like in your offerings. So talk to us a little bit about that, and what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they'd like to chat with you about coaching.
Okay. Community is they're offering perhaps some groups. I do offer some tapping, emotional freedom technique, And I will offer usually a group class around that so people can get familiar with what that's like to come back to your nervous system, like how we address the cortisol spikes that we tend to get. And so I like to offer people an opportunity to learn that. It can be in a group setting, also work with people individually, because it's not always appropriate to work in a group setting with that modality. But there's studies that are done. I have offered the Artist Way, which is a multi-week program that gets us in touch with our creativity, which is our right brain. Our right brain is our, the child brain that just where all delight generates from. Our left brain tries to rationalize our right brain and tell us those things. So being in a community of people that are seeking delight and hope and just forward movement, that is the community. Those are our bumpers, our rails. So you can get that through some groups that I offer. People that have been through Artist Way or a version of that class will have reunions that we'll meet routinely and stay in touch with the things that brought us so that we can sustain the things that we've learned rather than, oh, that was good. Now I'll get into the next class and I'll take the next thing and the next thing. I have been a serial class taker and I don't necessarily integrate if I get spend too much time looking for the next. But if I spend some time like embodying and embracing what I've learned, that actually gets me some sustainable results. So I also offer some creativity possibilities where we address emotions through painting and learn a little bit about what that feels like to paint joy. What does that feel like to paint anger? What does that feel like to paint fear? So it's taking something viscerally and creating it in a way that it's something that we can experience. And as far as getting a hold of me, I'm available at monica@thebrokenandbeautiful.com. So you can connect with me through the website. And I'd be happy to talk with anybody that has questions about any of the content that we've discussed and wants a little more information. I am more than happy to offer up some discovery call time. Just reach out to me via email and we'll schedule a time and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah. And I just want to put a plug in for you as a fellow sojourner. We've been sojourning together in various ways for a while now, I think several years. And it's one thing for a person to offer tapping or any modality really, but Monica, you really you just bring with you a wealth of and a depth of knowledge and a depth of experience and a rich invitation and warmth and safety for people. And so as people are, as they're listening to this and contemplating community, sometimes remember that community starts with one helper. And sometimes that's the safest, best way to get community. Doesn't mean you have like a whole bowling team. It might mean two of you go and the bumpers go up and you work together. And that's a great place to begin. And so, yes, reach out to Monica. We also, if you just want to kind of observe from the sidelines, go to our website, thebrokenandbeautiful.com, and click on subscribe to the newsletter. We have blog posts that come out on Facebook and Instagram every Monday. So like us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. We also obviously have the podcast, and podcast episodes generally drop once a week. And we have many coaches that we're here for each other and we're here for you. And we are building community because we believe in it. So we really are here to talk through and to offer opportunities for you to have community in the way that you need. So thank you, Monica, so much. Again, what a rich conversation today. The images, I hope that if even one person can take, from this, it's a win. I'm one. I took something from it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, what a gift. And I hope to talk with you again this way. If this episode resonates with you, follow or subscribe to Echoes and Edges on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a 5-star review and share with a friend who might need a gentle invitation to self-understanding. Echoes and Edges is produced and edited by Stephen R. Sanders. Music promoted by Envato. Echoes and Edges is part of the VividLivid Podcast Network, where bruises speak and healing finds its voice.